All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive deep and uncover the hidden science and, frankly, the ticking clock behind water damage right here in the Chesterfield area. Water damage really isn't just about a wet piece of carpet. It's actually a highly dynamic, structural, and even biological event that unfolds incredibly fast. So, we're going to break down exactly what happens the moment water strikes your property, starting from the dirt right outside your house all the way to those invisible threats lurking behind your drywall. Let's get into it. Here is our roadmap for the day. First, we'll look at the unique Chesterfield water threat. Second, that critical 48-hour biological clock. Third, the actual science behind structural drying. And finally, we'll cover navigating claims and costs. Starting off with Section 1, the Chesterfield water threat. To really understand why water damage is such a massive headache here, we literally have to look down at the ground beneath our feet. Chesterfield has this invisible enemy, and it's our clay-heavy soil. Now, because clay absorbs water incredibly slowly, whenever we get heavy seasonal rainfall, that soil expands and traps the water tightly against your foundation. And this creates something called hydrostatic pressure. Imagine a giant, relentless, invisible hand constantly pushing groundwater through the tiniest little cracks and seams directly into your basement or crawl space. It's a physical force pushing from the outside in, and it absolutely does not quit. What's wild is that depending on your exact zip code, the way this water attacks you shifts completely. Take Central Chesterfield, places like Bon Air or over near Chippenham. You've got these beautiful older homes, but they're dealing with outdated waterproofing. Plus, you have massive mature tree roots totally destroying aging plumbing. Now, contrast that with the newer Western developments like Woodlake or Brandermill. Out there, the issue completely shifts. It's all about disturbed soil from recent construction causing massive runoff problems, not to mention they're sitting right near lakes with super high water tables. So the triggers we face are just incredibly diverse. Properties are staring down elevated flood risks near the Swift Creek Reservoir and the Appomattox River. Then, boom, a summer thunderstorm hits and dumps inches of rain in just a couple of hours, completely overwhelming even the best drainage systems. Fast forward to winter, and those brutal freeze-thaw cycles cause attic and exterior pipes to just burst without any warning. Oh, and let's not forget our lovely year-round high humidity. It forces HVAC systems to work overtime, which leads to clogged condensate lines and those dreaded hidden ceiling leaks. Moving on to Section 2, the 48-hour biological clock. Okay, when water actually breaches your home, you have to dramatically up your urgency. Why? Because a biological countdown starts the very second things get wet. You are no longer just dealing with a puddle, you are dealing with biology. You have exactly 24 to 48 hours in moist conditions before microscopic mold spores start colonizing porous stuff like your drywall and insulation. And in Chesterfield's naturally muggy climate, that process is on fast forward. Mold spores are naturally everywhere, right? But if you give them a little moisture, some organic material like wood, and a bit of warmth, they multiply like crazy. This incredibly tight window is exactly why immediate extraction is absolutely non-negotiable. And this brings us to a huge misconception. Cleaning up the water that you can see is never, ever enough. The visible threat, the standing puddles or that squishy wet carpet padding, that's the stuff that makes you panic. But it's actually the hidden threat that destroys your house. Moisture wicks straight up into wall cavities, your baseboards swell up, and the subfloors absorb water like a giant sponge. If you just grab a shop vac and suck up the surface water, you are essentially leaving behind the perfect, hidden incubator for structural rot and black mold. We also have to talk about how dirty the water is, because that completely dictates how we get rid of it. The IICRC standardizes this into 3 categories. Category 1 is clean water. Think a burst supply line under your sink. Category 2 is gray water. This is from something like a washing machine overflowing, so it's got some gross stuff in it. But Category 3, that is black water. We are talking sewage backups or heavy outdoor floodwater crawling with pathogens. The category doesn't just tell us how dangerous the water is. It dictates exactly how restoration teams have to extract it. And honestly, what materials just have to go straight into the dumpster to keep your family safe. All right, Section 3, the science of structural drying. Now we kind of shift gears from emergency panic mode into methodical hard science. Because just getting rid of the puddles is only phase 1. Truly drying the bones of a house is a literal engineering feat based on something called psychrometry. Big word, I know. But professional remediation isn't just tossing a few box fans in a room and crossing your fingers. Technicians use psychrometry, which is the study of the thermodynamics of moist air, to mathematically calculate exactly how much dehumidification a specific room needs. They are literally manipulating airflow, temperature, and humidity to rip trapped moisture right out of dense building materials. It's fascinating stuff.
And they don't guess. They use highly precise tools to hunt this moisture down. Thermal imaging cameras are basically X-ray vision. They let technicians see the temperature differences caused by hidden water behind a wall, so they don't have to just smash the drywall with a hammer first. Then, they use penetrating moisture meters to test the exact saturation percentage of things like your hardwood floors or your wall studs. And finally, hygrometers are running constantly to track the relative humidity in the air, making sure the drying environment stays absolutely perfect.
So, to actually pull this off, the process follows 3 very strict steps. Step 1 is emergency extraction. They bring in these massive truck-mounted pumps to get the standing water out right away. Step 2 is structural drying, where they deploy all those commercial dehumidifiers and heavy-duty air movers we just talked about. And finally, step 3 is full restoration. This is the rebuild phase, putting up fresh drywall, painting, dropping in new floors, basically getting the property looking exactly like it did before the disaster. But we have to be realistic about the timeline here, right? While the initial response is lightning fast, proper scientific drying in our humid Chesterfield environment generally takes a good 3 to 5 days. That first hour is all about stopping the bleeding. Days 1 and 2 are when they establish that perfect psychrometric environment. And by days 3 through 5, the experts are checking those meters to scientifically verify that moisture levels have officially dropped back to normal. You literally cannot rush physics. If you pull the equipment out too early, I guarantee you'll be dealing with mold next month. And finally, Section 4, Navigating Claims and Costs. Let's talk about the money, because this causes a lot of anxiety. How are these costs actually determined? Well, they scale based on a few very specific variables. This is why shutting the water off immediately is so crucial. A tiny Category 1 clean water leak in a half bathroom is going to be exponentially cheaper to fix than a Category 3 sewage nightmare that floods your entire finished basement. The materials matter hugely too. Drying out custom, solid hardwood floors takes highly specialized equipment and a lot more time than just ripping out standard carpet padding and tossing it away. Now, when it comes to your insurance, adjusters look at things very much in black and white. There's a massive difference between a sudden accident and gradual neglect. Standard homeowner policies generally cover water damage if it's sudden and accidental, like, say, a pipe freezes and bursts at 2 a.m., or a freak storm blows a tree branch through your roof. But if you've got a slow drip under your kitchen sink that you kind of just ignored for 6 months, or if groundwater is seeping in because you never cleaned your gutters, yeah, those claims are almost always excluded. This is where professional data becomes your absolute best friend. Rigorous documentation is your strongest defense when dealing with an insurance claim. Adjusters need hard proof before they write a check. So by keeping daily logs of moisture readings, handing over thermal imaging photos of the hidden damage, and clearly cataloging the exact water categories and ruined materials, the restoration pros build an indisputable paper trail for you. Having this level of detail drastically cuts down on the chances of a denial and gets you reimbursed way faster. Ultimately, the entire philosophy of dealing with water damage boils down to this. Water damage gets worse every single hour. A fast response literally saves you money. Every hour that water sits there, it's wicking further up your walls, soaking deeper into your joists, and pushing you closer to that 24 to 48-hour mold window. Acting fast stops the financial bleeding, speeds up the restoration, and honestly protects the long-term value of your home. So knowing what we know now about Chesterfield's specific geographic risks, understanding how crazy fast that biological mold timeline moves, and recognizing the hardcore science it takes to actually dry a building, you really don't have to be caught off guard anymore. So I'll leave you with this. When water strikes your property, are you going to be racing against the clock, or are you going to be ahead of it? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay prepared, and I will catch you in the next one.